Good morning, campers. This is Sarina, also known as Camp Counselor Spatula, which is very appropriate for this morning's session. So we're going to be talking about cooking as ritual and making two different dishes. And if you registered, pre-registered for Warrior Goddess Summer Camp, you would have received a list of supplies. These were recommended options. Good morning, Valerie. And the thing about cooking as ritual and the way that I cook is that everything's intuitive. So you get to break the rules. You get to choose the ingredients that you like, not the ingredients that some recipe told you to make with it. And it's just delightful. So I'm currently in the kitchen. If you do not have your supplies, please go grab them so that we can get started. Good morning, good morning. I'm ready for breakfast too. I woke up famished and decided not to eat. So I'm just gonna be hungry while I'm cooking, and then we'll get to eat together, which is super exciting. So I love to get started whenever I'm cooking as ritual. Well, really whenever I'm cooking, but especially if I'm seeing that particular dish that I'm making as a ritual process. And one of the things that I like to do to set the space to make it a ritual space is to have flowers and candles. And you don't have to have these things by any stretch of the imagination. But it's a nice reminder of the way that we can be in ritual with anything that we're doing. And you can also just create a beautiful ritual space with using your intent or your imagination, your clear focus. So I'm going to put my candle and flowers over here. You won't be able to see them during the broadcast, but know that they are glorious and right here. Valerie, if you're like me, I snack and taste the food as you go. I do absolutely do that, and I have this beautiful plate of cooked bacon next to me, so you may see me snacking on some bacon. So we're gonna make two dishes this morning. And while we're cooking those dishes, I'll also be talking about ritual and how to do cooking as ritual. And I'll also be sharing a lot, I think, we'll see what happens, about my mom, because my mom really taught me how to cook in a really mindful way and how to cook intuitively. So I'll be sharing a little bit of that. And if we have time, I have some of my camping gear with me. Cooking camping gear, so I'll share those with you as well, just so you can kind of see what I take out in the woods with me. So I'm going to grab my eggs, and I got some ground turkey that I'm going to put in. So I'm going to go grab those two things, and I'll be right back. So for the first dish, what you're going to want is the savory things. So I'm using organic eggs. I also have some organic egg whites that are like liquid egg because I have a really high protein meal plan, and so I add extra egg whites. I also have some ground turkey. I have cooked bacon because bacon takes a little bit of time. I have some fresh herbs. I have some flame roasted green chilies. I'm not sure if I'm going to use them because one of the people who will be eating this doesn't tend to like spicy things. I don't think green chilies are that spicy, but I'm just mindful. So I might put a few in, or I might just have them on the side. And then I also have some arugula and spinach. So one tip or trick is if you have greens, like super greens, spinach, arugula, those types of things, that are going bad or starting to get on their last little limb, they're great in doing stir fries or scrambles, and then also making them into soups. So not like once they're liquefied, that's a little too past their prime. But if you have some that are just getting not quite salad material anymore, that's really fun. So I'm going to grab a cutting board. I don't actually know if I'll need my cutting board. Oh yeah, I'll need it later. So one thing, you had a Twinkie in your coffee? That's awesome. I've never had a Twinkie, I don't think. I've definitely not had one in my coffee. So if you are a coffee drinker or a morning drinker of some kind, go grab your beverage. I'm going to check on the potatoes. I put some potatoes that I diced just in the oven so that they can get a little browned and cooked, and then I can just throw them into the pot. So tools. So I just talked about the food part. Like that's what we're doing for our first dish is we're making a savory egg dish. You can do this in a casserole dish. You could do it in a cast iron Dutch oven, which is what I'm doing it in. So this is what I'll be pouring everything into. This is the beautiful lid, which I probably won't need, except for presentation. And then this is the pot. And then if you're browning meat or tofu or tempeh, you'll probably need a frying pan of some kind. So I have this one, which is my camping one, and I also have this one, which is much bigger. And so I was going to attempt to do it in my camp one, so I could be extra campy this morning. And I'm also just open to, if it doesn't work out, switching to the other pan. So I'll show you the other pieces that go with this set. But if you were camping, this is super handy because it has a handle that detaches, and then you put this on top of a pot system to pack it. And so everything will fit in your backpack. But I already got it out for us this morning. So the first things, oh, and then I also have two kinds of knives. I don't actually know, I'm not a trained cook or chef, so I don't actually know which knife you use for what, but this is my favorite. And then I like this one for big jobs. What else? I think that's it for our first dish. So, oh, I need a big bowl. It's your get creative. Okay. So you want to get a big bowl as well to. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is ground meat, tempeh or tofu, and we're going to heat up our skillet. And if you already cooked yours, then bear with us. Also, campers, please make sure that you're being very careful with any sharp objects like knives, as we don't want any kitchen emergencies happening. can already hear my mom saying, you should have used scissors. Okay. I think that one thing of another thing of turkey. You can start browning meat. So if you're using sausage, have links that are not links hanging out in your steak. You do whatever you want. About how they do this. All I'm doing is okay. Am I back? Sorry about that. Am I back? Am I back? Can you see me now? Uh-oh. Okay, great. I'm back. Whew. That was a close one. So sometimes the internet here is a bit spotty, as we found out yesterday. I think it was during Tara's weaving. So sorry about the interruption. Okay, so all I'm doing is browning my meat. If I can turn you. See? So I'm just gonna brown that over the next few minutes. Let it cook. I'm actually gonna turn the heat up because it's on super low. And then if you guys have questions, if y'all have questions, please feel free to type them into the comments and I'll see them. It's not necessary, but if you want to, if you can just put your name, either your camp name or your Muggle name, and that way I can just know who I'm addressing, but that's not necessary either. So for this first part of the process, all we're doing is browning our protein if you have one that needs to be cooked or browned. So I cooked the bacon. I pre-cooked that in the oven. So if you've never made bacon in the oven, I do it for 425 for 20 minutes, and I flip it halfway through, and it makes it excellent. And then if you have potatoes or something like that, last time I did this, I used cauliflower, like hash browns, and I didn't have to pre-cook them. I just threw them into the mix. And Heather Ash is here. Do you want to see? We're making turkey.
Nice. Good morning, everybody.
And we have bacon. Do you want a piece of bacon?
It's smelling good.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Looks really good. This is like the perfect set.
Yeah, it's great. So, we're going to keep browning our meats. If you haven't made bacon in the oven, it's amazing. And then I'm also, remember at the beginning I told you I have my potatoes in the oven, so I'm going to check on those. Instead of just flipping my potatoes a little bit, they're getting kind of stuck to the bottom. So let those cook a little bit longer. They're starting to soften, which is good. Are the potatoes diced and what heat in the oven? So I just left the heat at 425 since I already had the bacon in there. And I small diced them today because of time. You don't have to do that. You can have them regular diced or you can slice them like au gratin style. I mean, it's really up to you however you like your potatoes. And so I just small diced them and put them in the oven maybe like 20 minutes ago or so, right before I hopped on. I pulled out the bacon and threw the potatoes in. What kind of pan do you put the bacon in the oven? Great question, Sue. It's a sheet pan, like a cookie sheet, although this one's a bit industrial looking. And then I actually lay foil down so that way it's easier cleanup. So just some type of aluminum foil. You could also use parchment paper if you wanted to do that. So I just put it on 425 and then you throw the bacon in for 20 minutes. And then if you were doing like, sometimes I use Italian sausage or chicken sausage. There's this one at Sprouts that's like basil chicken sausage. It's so good. It's ground. So you really, my invitation is to go to the grocery store with like a dish kind of in mind and then just drop into your intuition and say, what do I think would be like good flavors to put together, or just allow the ingredients to speak to you. If you came to my art class yesterday, it's a very similar process. So I just open to what is it that is calling to me, and I allow the ingredients to have a conversation together. And I have a conversation with them as well. And so as everything's cooking, I want to talk a little bit about the ritual aspects. So one of the beautiful parts about Warrior Goddess training for me and learning from Heather Ash was this reconnection that I had to ritual. And I spent a lot of time in my like tweens and early teens really deep in ritual. And I got disconnected from it a little while later. Not sure exactly, probably like falling in love over and over again or something, but I definitely got disconnected from magic and my power and ritual through my late teens and early 20s. And then found Warrior Goddess training, and as a result, got reconnected to ritual in a really big way. So cooking for me has become ritual, and I would say most of the time it's ritual for me. There's a few times, like if I'm having a heavy work day, where it may not be as ritual-esque. But in general, all ritual and ritual is for me, especially around cooking, is this idea of moving from one form to another, or activating, certain elements. And so for me, I just create sacred space before I cook, and then I am in deep relationship with the ingredients that I'm using. So I listen to the carrots and the celery, and I thank the animals and plants that I'm using for their service to nourish my body. And I'm half Thai. My mom was Thai, and she passed away last year. And, in Thailand, we are animists, and we believe that everything has a spirit, and, everything is worthy of belonging and having its place in the world. And so it's really important to be in right relationship with the ingredients that we're cooking with. And then the other thing I've learned as I've, I'll tell myself just a little bit. I was vegan for 6 or 7 years, I think. And I was really self-righteous at that time as well. Because I just believed that everyone should be vegan, and didn't they know about all the horrible things that are happening in the world. But then I actually got really sick, and my doctor said that my body composition doesn't do well on a vegan diet. And so I really had to face the diet and had embodied. And so I started to really drop into a better relationship with the ingredients that I'm using. And so I do my best to buy pasture-raised, grass-fed, organic, like all of those types of things. And I'm also mindful of the privilege that I have, that I'm able to do those things, and also the accessibility of having and being able to get those ingredients. So with that being said, yesterday when I went to the store here, most of the shelves were empty. It was a really interesting experience. And so I bought the ingredients that I could, that were natural, organic, yada, yada. And I had to buy some stuff that I wouldn't typically buy, simply because I didn't have access to it. And there are so many people that don't have access to those things. And my mom actually grew up extremely impoverished in Thailand. And she would never waste anything. She actually thought that buying organic was a crop. So we'd get into lots of fights about it. But now I just listen to my body. I do the best I can when I'm going to the grocery store. And I really invite folks to open to a lot of the privileges we have if we're in a highly developed or modern country, if we are living well enough that we can access those types of ingredients, and also not pass judgment on folks who don't buy that way or aren't able to or whatever. So I do have dreams of food being really sustainable, and cooking being something that everyone knows how to do, that they have access to it, regardless of their resources, and that we also do that with ritual. So, I grew up with cooking as being part of a communal activity. So my mom's Thai friends would come over. And I mean, this was when I was like a baby sitting on a blanket, having a chicken wing in one hand and sticky rice in the other. But we would sit around and they would talk in Thai and tell stories and be laughing so loud. It actually reminds me of summer camp in some ways. and we would have these huge feasts of just food laying out, and it was really amazing. And so that's how I started cooking, and just watching her and helping her. My mom never ever used recipes. She would just throw stuff together and hope for the best. She had really deep faith that things would work out, and most of the time they did. Baking was a bit of a stretch because, well, she didn't use recipes, and there's some precision, as I learned from watching the Great British Baking Show or Bake Off or whatever that show is called. And so, yeah, it was a really interesting process. Okay, so my meat is browned, and I imagine that if you are also in the browning process, yours is as well. If you're cooking bacon and you cooked it on the stove, it should be pretty well done. If you didn't, and you're like cooking in the oven right now, it'll just take a little bit to do that. So the next part of this process is to take the thing that you're going to be baking in. And for that part of the process, we'll preheat the oven to 350. So as soon as my potatoes are done, I'm going to drop the temperature to 350. But get your Dutch oven, casserole dish. Those are probably the best things to use. If you have something else that you bake in, you can use that. Doesn't really matter. And so all I'm going to do is take the browned turkey, which is all broken up now, and put it into this Dutch oven. And then I'm going to break up the bacon and put it in there as well. So part of this process for me is feel into what feels good to you. If you want to put your potatoes down first, you can do that. I have 0 rules. And if I did have rules, I would just break them anyways. So my mother taught me at a very young age, mostly through role modeling, that rules were meant to be broken. And that was in the kitchen, that was outside the kitchen. It was really just anywhere rules existed. Okay. So I'm gonna put the pan in the sink. I'm gonna see if I can prop y'all up. See in the pot a little bit. Okay, so I have my browned meat in here, and I'm gonna wash my hands because I'm about to break up my bacon with my hands. And I will tell you that Heather Ash has thieves now, and like thief soap, and it's so good. Okay, so once you have your protein, and this could be tofu crumbles or Beyond, whatever they're called. Like there's so many things now, Morningstar, like whatever. And so you just want to have your protein in there somewhere. And then I'm also going to put the arugula spinach blend in here. And then I'm going to mix everything with my hands. You do not have to mix them with your hands if you do not want to. However, what I've learned from doing this process and from mostly cooking with my mom, because we would make egg rolls, and it's so funny. She'd use a spoon for like the first 5 seconds of the process, and then she'd abandon the big spoon and just mix it with her hands. And I remember as a kid being very confused by this, especially a kid that grew up in the US. I was like, ew, there's a tool for that. Why are we using our hands? Blah, blah, blah. And I wondered for a long time if that was just like this backwards way of doing it. I thought it was really inefficient. And it just didn't seem like the best way to do it. And what I've learned as I've gotten older, and especially as I've deepened into ritual, is that we become so removed from our food. And our ancestors probably at some point cooked with their hands. And there's a connection in, what's the word? There's a way that it takes you back to the way our ancestors made things. And before there were, you know, all these fancy kitchen gadgets, they would have like carved their tools, and then they would have used those tools. They probably also would have used their hands. And so, you know, it's just a process. And then Valerie writes, grew up Italian with my grandmother, and we always used our hands cooking. Yeah, and that's the thing. So you don't have to do this by any stretch. I just think it, like, I don't go out and, you know, hunt turkeys. If I did, I would use a bow and arrow, because that seems like a way that I would do it. Not that I've thought about these things at all. And I think it helps reconnect us to food that we become so separate from. Now, if you have a farm or you have access to food, you know, where you can go harvest and hunt yourself, that's great. Like, totally power to you. And I wish that I had that. I don't. And so instead, I just use my hands a lot. And so I'm just breaking up the meat. And I was going to use all the bacon, but I'm actually not going to because there's enough in there. So this is what I'm talking about in terms of using our intuition, is that you feel into it. So if you're in it and you're like, oh, you know what? It doesn't need that. Or the pieces need to be smaller. You know, I could have broke up the pieces in the frying pan with the spatula I was using. Or I could do it with my hands. And I didn't actually get that until I was in it. They often use their hands in professional kitchens. Oh, really? I didn't know that. That's cool. Accessibility is huge. When I moved to Cozumel, we didn't have access to fresh veggies and greens. Now that I'm in San Cristobal de las Casas, we have access to the indigenous market where everything is fresh and they sell and use every part of an animal. Nothing is wasted. We've been making bone broth again. Oh, I love that so much. Like, that whole idea. And, you know, I made a drum a few weeks ago, and it was really beautiful because we were talking about how in a lot of indigenous communities and First Nations that they use the entire animal. You know, eat the meat and use the hides and things. Okay, so next I'm going to take my greens, and I'm actually going to wash my hands because I don't know if I'm going to use all my greens. Oh, and I'm going to check them on potatoes. Ooh, the potatoes are done. So that's the other thing, is part of the cooking as ritual is paying attention to ingredients as well, like listening for when they're done, and they'll tell you. So the potatoes, when they're done, they make this sound. And if you listen really closely, you might be able to hear it. It's like a sizzling whistle. And that's how I know they're done, because they're telling me. So I'm going to pick you up just for a second so you can see what the potatoes look like. So that's the type of baking dish I made them in. And see how they're just slightly brown and they're whistling. So all I did was put diced potatoes in. a baking dish with a little bit of butter and some salt, coarse salt, because that's how I like my salt. And so that's it. Okay, so I'm going to scoop the potatoes in here and then put the greens in. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to put the greens in. See, this is part of the feeling senses. That. Valerie asked how you slice potatoes and cook them. At what temp? Yeah. So sorry, I thought I answered that, but it might have been when I dropped. So I small dice these potatoes for the essence of time, and you can choose how you want to dice them or cut them rather. So if you don't want them diced and you want them sliced like au gratin, you can do that. And then I put them in at 425 because the bacon was in when I put them in. And that's what temperature I cook the bacon at in the oven. Now, that being said, you can cook the potatoes at 350 for longer. You can make them bigger chunks, like if you like chunky potatoes. And so I'm just putting down greens on top of my meat. And then I'm going to put the potatoes on top. So you may notice I'm using these like giant oven mitt things. These are for Dutch ovens when you're camping. So it's to prevent you from getting burned when you lift the Dutch oven off of the and take the coals off. And I just decided to double up on using that. Let's see. Okay. And I was going to use my spatula, but I actually think I'm going to use my big spoon because it will work better, I think. So this is a giant spoon that I'm using. And I'm just going to scoop up the potatoes. Oh, it seems to and I'm just going to sprinkle them on top. Again, there's no like rules. So however it is that you want to make your dish, you can layer it. You can mix it together with your hands. You can mix it together with a spoon. Does not matter. The essence is that you put whatever fillings you want in it, and then you mix it with eggs. And that's it. And then we bake it in the oven at 350 for 55 minutes. Okay, so I just have all of those in there. And then the last thing we're going to, is that the last thing? Yeah. The last thing we're going to do is add the eggs. So to do that, get your dish. I'm going to use all 12 eggs, but you can make however, you can use as many eggs as you want for however big your dish is. Okay, which greens? So I used spinach and arugula, good guesses. And that's how I often cook rice. I use smell to determine when my rice is done. Yeah, that's perfect. And so, you know, I often will have people who ask me how to make something. And I'm like, well, I can tell you what's in it, but the, but it may change, like the temperature may change or whatever based on that day. So I tend to use 350, 325, or 425 whenever I'm cooking things. You can also just use Google if you want to be precise. I kind of wing it. I'm not going to lie. So I check to see if things are done. I use a thermometer a lot to see if the temperature is right for food safety. But other than that, I'm very much I think I'm going to put the oven on this temperature or whatever. So I just bought a 50-50 arugula baby spinach mix that's organic, and I ate it as a salad. Oops. I ate it as a salad yesterday for lunch, and then I'll probably eat some of it as a salad today for lunch or dinner. And yeah, so I tend to use what I have. Oh, I almost forgot about the garlic. I'm going to put garlic in this as well. And so I tend to look, before I even go to the store, I tend to look at what do I already have at the house, and can I use what I have to make something. So a lot of my creations have come out of what's about to go bad that I didn't cook with, or just looking and seeing and trying neat things together. Okay, so I have my eggs. I'm looking to see if Heather Ash has a whisk, which she doesn't, so I'm just going to use a fork. And then you just scramble the eggs. Oh, I love that. So you can use onions and peppers. They didn't actually have good onions and peppers at the store that I went to yesterday. So I'm not putting onions and peppers in this one, but I did do it when I did my prototype. I did use it that way. And, you know, it's so funny. I never really thought about mixing my eggs with my hands, but I will sometimes once I put them in there. So one step ahead of the game. So yes, I tend to use onions and peppers. I think Heather Ash doesn't like green bells cooked and things, so I was mindful not to get those. But last time I made this, I used red and yellow, or maybe orange and yellow bell peppers. And I'm just pouring the egg over the top. And then I'm also going to put those egg whites. And so you can use as many eggs as you want. And depending on how much you add, you'll either make it bigger or smaller. Your dish, rather. Okay. Oop, there's still a little left. So I also try to use everything. Like I try to use a spatula to scrape things out. Oops. So that I don't waste hardly anything. Okay, and then I'm going to take my hands and mix everything in here together. And then I'm going to wash my hands and put some garlic in here. So, butter's melting. Okay, so I'm gonna get some garlic. Oh, okay. Secret ingredient, spatula love, absolutely. Zucchini, mushrooms, Like when you separate yolk from whites. Yeah, so the egg whites are just liquid egg whites. So somebody or some machine or something already separated it for me. Yes, zucchini, mushrooms, onions, peppers, all of that you can definitely put in. Yeah. So this is garlic. It's fresh garlic from my friend's garden, Talisha Cobb, who's also on the Warrior Goddess leadership team. And so I tend to use an entire head, but I am having this. Does Ash have any mason jars? She doesn't. Okay. At some other juncture, I'll show you all how to separate garlic with a mason jar. You basically put it in and then you shake it and it'll separate on its own. So I tend to use an entire head of garlic, but because I'm sharing this with other people, I'm not going to use the whole thing. Now, see how the inside of this is purple? That's actually the best type of garlic, is if you can find the stuff that's purple. And if you can't, it's not the end of the world. It's just not as good. I'm a bit of a garlic snob. So I'm just going to break open the garlic. And get it de-peeled. Or not de-peeled, get it peeled. And then, so you want to be very careful, campers, when you're cutting anything, that you are not doing so without adult supervision, and that you're also watching where your fingers go. So I did take a cooking class recently through the Courageous Cooking School with McKenna Held, and they taught us how to like make our hand into a claw, and I kind of got it down, and I'm still kind of a mess about it. So I just kind of minced that. Okay. So I'm going to bring my egg thing back over here. Just kind of sprinkle it in. And then I'm actually probably going to mix it with my hands one more time before I put the herbs on top. So I like to put fresh herbs on top of mine. And that's just fun. The one I did a few weeks ago when I was testing, like how much time this would take, because I've never timed it before. I put fresh basil leaves on top, and they didn't have basil this time, so we'll see how that goes. So really get it all good and mixed. You can use a spoon, you can use your hands. Someone wrote, I harvested some beautiful veggies from my garden, red, green, peppers, eggplant, zucchini. That sounds amazing. So yes, you can put all the ingredients that you want. And I love to try new things. So I don't particularly like mushrooms, but the last like month, I've been practicing, seeing if there's any way that I do like them. And so I have found there are some ways that I like them. Okay, so the last part of the savory egg dish is to choose what herbs you want to use. So I think I'm going to use some rosemary and thyme. So all I'm going to do, I don't need a whole bushel. And again, remember, we're talking to our ingredients, we're feeling into them, we're listening to what they want. And they'll tell you, oh, it's so good. Like, just smelling it. So the way that I do this is I just pull backwards and then I sprinkle on top. And I'm sure there's some fancy way to do it, but I don't know how to do it. Okay, so someone asked if I am putting cheese in it. I am not putting cheese in it. I did put cheese in my prototype, and you're welcome to do that. I am a Kapha Pitta in Ayurveda, and I was told recently that dairy is not my friend. So sometimes if I do dairy, I'll put half and half in the eggs. Not a whole lot, just a little sprinkle, and then I'll also mix in raw cheese. But today I opted for no cheese. And you are welcome to add as much cheese as you like. Actually, if you would add cheese for me and then eat it vicariously, or I could eat it vicariously through you, that would be perfect. Okay, so I got some rosemary, and I'm going to add some thyme. Oh, I can smell them. They're so good. These ones are very fragrant. You can also, like what I did with the basil leaves is I just laid them like this, and I made a little design on top. This one has a lot more greens in it, so it's just going to look creamy on top. Okay, so that's it. So you have your oven. Oh, I need to turn mine down. Set to 350. And then we're going to put it in the oven for 55 minutes. So I'm going to grab my phone and set my timer. Okay, and I say 55 minutes. Everybody's oven is different. And so who knows? We'll see. I usually check it around 45 minutes. And then again, at 50 and then 55. Anyone put little tomatoes in? Yes, absolutely. If you like tomatoes, you can totally do that. Sometimes I put like a can of Rotel in here. Yeah, there's so many options. Okay, so I'm going to put this in the oven. And I think I'm going to actually move where the oven trays are, or the racks. So give me just a second. There we go. Okay, so we're going to put our savory egg dish in the oven. And then I'm going to put away, so if you need a bio break, now would be a great time. I'm going to put away the herbs and stuff that we don't need for the Warrior Goddess bowls. And then we can kind of do like a switcheroo. So, thank you, whoever said I need a cooking show. I've never filmed me cooking before, so this is actually a really funny experiment that I'm doing. I love to show people how to cook in person, but with COVID-19 happening, that's kind of slowed down as well. Yes, I will definitely share a photo when I am all done with it. And I do love tomatoes in them. Again, they didn't have any great ones looking at the store. It was a practice in creativity at the store yesterday because a lot of the things that I did want to get to put in there, they just didn't have. And so I had to play with that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is put away some things. And then I'm going to pull out the stuff that we need for the next part. And I'm also going to wash my knives. So things we will need for the next part is we're going to make Warrior Goddess breakfast bowls. And so I'm going to use rolled oats. I have some walnuts and pecans. I grabbed a nut butter. I have unsweetened coconut flakes. I was going to see if Heather Ash had cinnamon because I normally put that in, but I forgot it. Oh, actually, Jenny might have some, so I might run up to Jenny's. I have some yogurt, so I just got like plain whole milk yogurt. And yeah, so what you'll want to grab is anything that you like to have in like a granola. They're basically homemade granola with fruit. So you can do dried fruit or fresh fruit. I'm going to use peaches, organic yellow peaches. And then like something to put the granola and fruit in. So that can be a yogurt. It can be a milk of some kind. So you can do plant-based milk or dairy milk. So we'll take about 5 minutes to go gather up the things and also clean up your workspace so that it's clean and ready to go for this next part. We could do a Zoom cooking event with the group later in the fall. I love that idea. Warrior Goddess virtual cooking and alternate host. Yes. Oh my gosh, this would be so fun. Woot, 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 woot. Okay, 5 minutes. Change up your station and get ready for Warrior Goddess breakfast bowls. And make sure you wash your hands. so excited. So Heather Ash happened to be in Jenny's house and told me where the big bowls were. Okay. Okay, darlings. How are we doing? Everyone back? Need a few more minutes. Oh, I need to wash my cutting board so my peaches don't taste like garlic. That'd be gross. And then I'm also going to clean my big Mer Dragon steam. Now, you can't do this with all cutting boards, but with some cutting boards, you can just flip them over, and that's what I'm going to do so that my nuts and fruit do not taste like garlic. Because truly, the last thing that I like in my Warrior Goddess bowls is things tasting like garlic, because they're supposed to be sweet and not savory. And we're not going to make this morning, but I do want to share about a new discovery that I have, which I started making when I went out in the wilderness. So I tend to make a lot of oatmeal because it's easy to make when you're camping and trying to feed a lot of people. And so I make pumpkin pie oatmeal and blueberry oatmeal and cherry pie oatmeal and like all those kinds of things. And they are delicious. And I had someone suggest to me to make savory oatmeal. And so all you do is cook the oats just like you would normally. But then you add things like sausage and bacon, and I put a fried egg on top. You could put green chilies in it and all sorts of veggies. I mean, it is just delightful. So I do recommend playing with that. And maybe if we do more cooking in the fall, then I'll show you guys how to do that because it's actually really good to make when it's starting to get cold out as well. Okay, so everyone got their ingredients and their tools ready? So excited. Okay, so what we're going to do is start out with our rolled oats. And so I like to, I really like Bob's. But I've been branching out. I've been trying new types of oats. This is organic, extra thick rolled oats. And I'm just going to dump it into this big bowl. Oh, I guess you probably want to see that part. Okay, so So I just dumped the into this bowl, and we may add some more later. I just got a feeling sense that was probably enough to start with. And so I'm just going to seal up the bag and put it over here. Valerie, these bowls all sound delicious. Can you send us all those recipes? Yes. So with a caveat here, I'll look at you in the eye. So I will send you the ingredient options that I use and how to put them together. They are intuitive recipes in that way that you get to choose what it is that you put in there, but you'll have option lists. And yeah, you can test those out. Also, that being said, if you give me feedback, that would be great on, like, do these make sense? Because I've never tried to teach somebody how to do that otherwise. I've just taught them how to do it in person. My mom does that with veg, butter, salt, and pepper. Oh, the savory oatmeal. Isn't it delightful? So if we do cooking in the fall, as we've had requested, I have to run it by Heather Ash, then that would be super fun. And I'll teach you all how to make savory oatmeal. Okay, so we have our oats. And then the next thing you want to do is grab dry ingredients. So I'm going to start with my nuts. You can buy pre-chopped nuts and pieces and all sorts of, or they do like halves and pieces. I like to cut them myself. I mean, these are halves, like I don't have whole walnuts, but I also like to be in relationship with them myself. So I'm going to put some of them in here and just kind of lay them out. And then I think my bigger knife will be best for this. And so what I'm going to do is just run my knife over this. Again, I've never been professionally trained how to cut nuts. So if you know a better way, please, by all means, do that. The other thing that I sometimes do is put them into a bag and then squish them with a mason jar. Like if I don't have a knife handy or a cutting board or something. That feels a bit violent to me sometimes. I don't know why cutting with a knife doesn't. But I cringe a little bit, like I get like tense. So I've stopped doing that as often. And so you can use any kind of nut that you want. I also have nut butters that I'm going to be adding. And I'll introduce those to you. I just tend to like those. You can also add things like cacao powder, which are really delightful if you like chocolate. You can put chocolate chips in. There's really so many options. Again, please be mindful as you're cutting that you don't chop your hand off or finger. We can't send the warrior goddess nurse and EMTs to come do first aid or anything. Although I am wilderness first aid trained, so I could probably do quick triage via Zoom. I've never done that before. I don't know how ethical that is. Okay, so you can make them as fine as you like. I like to have a bit of texture, so I'm not going to make them too fine. And then the easiest way for you to do this is to slide your cutting board to the edge and then put your bowl down below it. And then just kind of shimmy the nuts. You can also use the back of the knife, like some people will do this. I, again, tend to use my hands if at all possible, so. And again, you don't have to get all the little crumbs off. You can if you want. And they'll probably get picked up by the peaches and anything else you're cutting. Okay, and then all I'm doing is mixing this with my hands then. So those nuts get all mixed in. So this idea came to me when I was camping out in the wilderness with another community that I'm really big in and do a lot of stewarding of land with them. And so I started cooking for wilderness quests and rites of passage kind of work. And I was looking for ways to really connect our food in a way that was supportive to the processes that were happening. And part of that was looking at what foods were grounding and which ones were also easy to prepare out in the woods, which ones would prepare them for ritual and that sort of thing. So I keep all of that in mind whenever I'm preparing food. Are we doing lots of labor? Is it emotional labor or is it like physical labor? Because that'll also impact it. And I just started putting ingredients together, and then we found that we could have a whole like buffet of different types. So I would put fresh berries out, maybe apples or peaches or both, put an array of nut butters out, different types of yogurt like cow milk yogurt and then coconut milk yogurt. I would put out pumpkin pie spice and cinnamon. Lots of things that we would just put out and people would just start throwing them into these bowls. And so I started calling them warrior goddess bowls. And if I'm in a mixed gender group, then I call them warrior heart bowls. So simple. Okay, so now you should have your oats and your nuts in there. If you have dried fruit, you can chop that up now and put that in. I'm also going to put some coconut flakes in. So all I'm going to do is sprinkle some in. So I use unsweetened coconut flakes. You can use whatever kind you like. And I'm just mixing this by hand again. And what's great about this is that you can make it at the beginning of like a camping trip, and just like these bowls have lids on them. So they're these giant lids. So you can just like keep it as a Tupperware dish all week while you're camping. I'm just going to finish this because why not? So mix it again. Oh, this is looking so good. So if you have dried fruit and you want to cut it, like chop it up, mince it. I don't know if you can mince. I'm sure you can. Anyways, if you want to make it into smaller bits, you can do that. I'm not using dried fruit today. I'm going to use fresh fruit, so I'm going to skip that part. But you just do it the same way we did the nuts. And so now we have coconut flakes, chopped nuts, and rolled oats. And at this point, you can add any other dry ingredients that you want. So I'm going to sprinkle some cinnamon into this. And you can do pumpkin pie spice. You can, cardamom would probably be good. You know, just figure out what you want your flavor profile to be, and listen to the ingredients. They'll talk to you. They'll let you know, hey, I want to play. You know. Okay, so at this point, you can do one of two things. You can keep this as it is. You could throw some chocolate chips in it if you want, or things like that. And you can just throw a lid on it, throw it in your car, and take it camping with you. Or put it in your pantry. You can also, so this is what's called a dry granola, so there's no like wetness to it. The other thing you can do is add coconut oil, which is what I'm going to do. And so you don't need to add a ton, but I just like to pour some on top. And again, this is the place of listening to your intuition and seeing what wants to come. And then you can mix it with your hands or you can mix it with a spoon. It usually takes me like 10 years to get coconut oil off my hands, so I'm just going to mix it with a spoon. And so this is what's called wet granola. And you don't have to use coconut oil. I'm sure there are other oils you can use. I've never actually used a different kind of oil, but I'm sure any of them, as long as it was light tasting, it would be fine. Occasionally I add dark chocolate mini chips. Yeah, that's great. I love adding cacao powder, chocolate chips, all sorts of things. So this is your Warrior Goddess granola. And mine changes every single time that I make it. So sometimes I put pepitas in, which are pumpkin seeds. I'll put cashews in or macadamia nuts. And really, really, really going to the grocery store with ritual, like cooking as ritual in mind, is such a paramount process because you can ground into your being, drop a taproot down before you go into the store, and also imagining the top of your head opening up like branches wide to sky and open up to your intuition. And then as you're in the grocery store, imagine that you're having a conversation with all of the the friends that are there. So you can talk to the strawberries and the cherries, and you can talk to the peaches or the apples. You can talk to the spice section. You can talk to the different types of oats. I'm sure you could also do this. I'm not sure. I imagine you could also do this with like quinoa flakes, which I think are similar to oats. There are lots of different ways to do this. And so my invitation is to allow your creativity to come out, allow yourself to be present with the ingredients that you're using, and to really build relationship with them so that you have that. So you just kind of keep stirring, and then when it feels like it's good and mixed, then you can just put this to the side for now. And then I'm going to cut some peaches, and then I'll show you how I mix my yogurt. Sesame seeds, that sounds good. So if you have apples or something like that, you can use those. I don't actually know how many people are going to be eating this, so I'm just going to cut up 2 peaches so they don't get wasted, and then I can always cut up more if other people want some. I'm rinsing off my peaches. You can also clean your peaches and soak them in the sink with apple cider vinegar, which also can be supportive. Okay, so I'm going to get my bowl out. This is, so you can see the size. I'm getting my bowl out, which is the bowl that I'm going to eat my breakfast in. And so I have that to the side. And then, is that actually where I want to put it? Okay, plot twist. I'm actually going to do the yogurt first because I want to put the yogurt at the bottom and then put the peaches on top. Okay, this is so funny. Wait. You have to listen very closely. Okay, so I'm going to use my yogurt. You don't have to use yogurt. You can use nothing. Like, you don't have to have a base. But I'm going to use my yogurt, so I'm just going to grab my spoon. It's actually a spork. Spoon on one side, fork on the other. I'm going to mix this up a little bit. And then plop some in here. So I don't tend to, when I make this, use a ton of yogurt. It might be a half a cup or so. Again, I don't measure anything. So I'll just kind of see. That seems good. Okay, so I put some yogurt in. And then I'm going to put a dab of vanilla. And then just mix it up. If you have stevia and you like your yogurt really sweet, you can do that. Oh, that's the other thing I forgot. Let me see if I can find my maple syrup. No, I think I left it down at the casita. It's fine. But you can put agave, or I like to use pure maple syrup. You can also use stevia, and you just mix it directly into the yogurt. Or you can mix it directly into the granola. So whichever thing that you want sweet, you can do that as well. I tend to drizzle some of the sweetener on my granola, and then if I taste it and it's not quite sweet enough, then I'll also add some to my yogurt. But that's up to you. And if you use like a really sweet fruit, then that can also just be sweet enough. And I don't know how sweet these are, so they may be just perfect for what I'm trying to create. Yes, you can use coconut milk yogurt. I've done that before. It's really good. Your peaches can go in the freezer, cut in chunks, and then they can go in your yogurt later. Absolutely. Honey, yeah. So there's so many different types of sweeteners you can use. I also use coconut sugar sometimes. So it's really just up to you. Oh my goodness, look at how beautiful this is. Oh, and it smells so good. Oh, I just love fresh fruit. Okay. So I'm just going to cut up both of these. Rachel, I know. I wish you were coming out. It's okay. We'll have another work party and you can come eat my yummy food. Okay. So I'm just going to cut up these peaches. Okay, with any of your things, any of the stuff that we're cutting, I really want you to be at choice. So if you like big chunks, then make it chunky. If you like it pulverized, pulverize it. If you like it minced, make it minced. It's totally up to you. Slices, dices, so many options. And you can do these with apples. You can cut cherries. You could put pomegranates in. I mean, the options are practically endless. Oh, look at how pretty it is. So we had peach trees growing up, and my mom would get into huge fights with the birds over how many peaches they could have. She wanted them to be able to eat them. She thought that, that was part of service to them, was having fruit available. And she thought that we did have enough for everyone. But what they would do is they'd only eat part of a peach. And she would go out and have stern conversations with them about if you're going to eat the peach, please eat the whole peach. Don't just pick a little bit off of every single peach, because then we don't have, we have to eat around the bird pecking. So we started then to make cottontail feasts. So we would go pick some and feed everything to the cottontails. I mean, we fed them fruit and lettuce, carrot shred. Whenever we shredded carrots, we'd go feed them. So yeah, it's So fun. Okay, so I got tons of peaches here. Way too much for my little bowl, but definitely enough for 2, maybe 3 people, depending on how much you want. So what I'm going to do is scoop up some peaches and just throw them into my yogurt. Ta-da! I'm going to stir to see like what the ratio of yogurt to fruit is. I'll do a little bit more. Okay. So at this point, you have fruit yogurt of whatever kind you have, or you have just the base. So you could use regular milk, like full fat milk or 2% milk or whatever. You can also use a nut or plant-based milk, so cashew milk, oat milk, whatever. And the other thing that I like to add to this a lot is nut butters. So now I'm going to introduce you to my slight addiction to nut butters. So this is peanut butter. This is raw walnut butter. And this is raw cashew butter. And I just love having nut butters in everything, or most everything. So I'm going to feel into which one. So I have all 3. I could put all 3 in. That's feeling a little extra for me this morning. So I'm just going to hold my hand over it and see if there's one that's calling to me stronger. And I'm going to drop my hand, and it is the raw cashew butter. So I'm going to open up this raw cashew butter. So this is so funny. I was just about to stick my yogurt spoon in here because I figured I'm going to be the only one eating it, but that may not be true. So I'm going to grab a different spoon. Ta-da! Another spork. And with a lot of the nut butters that are natural, you have to mix them. So you want to make sure that you get the oil off the top, otherwise it's just oil. So you mix it a little bit. And then I like to dig down a little bit just to make sure I got it mixed well. And then you can put as much as you like in there. So I'm just going to put a dollop. I don't actually know what the measurement of a dollop is, but about that much. Get creative. I love nut butters. Totally going to have yogurt, fruit, granola snackies now. Yeah, they're so yummy. So one thing that I do is I take mason jars and I'll layer them. So let's say I knew I was going out for a hike for the day. I may grab a mason jar or a thermos. I have a thermos right here, so I'll use that. And I fill the bottom part with like yogurt or fruit, and then layer it. So then I might put a layer of granola, and then another layer of yogurt, or another layer of fruit. And then you can just take that with you. Excuse me. I'm going to go wash my hands. That nut butter was extra creamy and got stuck going down my throat. Yes, licking the spoon is so fabulous. Okay, so I'm digressing and getting distracted. So you have your yogurt and your nut butter if you want. You could throw cacao powder in, other spices, like whatever. I have vanilla and yogurt and fruit in here. And I'm actually going to sample this because I'm just curious what this tastes like. Oh my God, it's so good. Okay, so we have that. And then you can put your cutting board aside with all of the things on it. Slide it over. And then you have your big batch of granola. And so I just mix it around a little bit, just one more time. And then, ta-da! That's it. So that's a warrior goddess bowl and breakfast bowl. I also do what I call Krishna and Buddha bowls, which are similar things, but they're savory and they're for dinner or lunch. And so I like to mix mine up, and you can really do whatever you want. Like, that's what I want you to know walking away at the end of this class, is that you, my darling, are at choice. And you get to make anything you want, get to choose all the profiles, the flavor profiles that you want. You get to eat food that feels nourishing for your body composition and all of that. So you get to choose and to tap into pleasure, like allow the food to be yummy and allow it to be nourishing and to really be a part of the process, to make it a ritual, to allow yourself to really commune with it, to converse with it. Some of this while I'm talking to you. And I'm also going to check on our savory egg dish because I am at higher altitude and I can't remember what that means. But I think there's something about that in baking. So let's check on it. Ooh, we might be almost done actually. Oh, still pretty jiggly in the middle. Let's grab a knife. So one way to check if it's done, if you don't have a thermometer handy, is to just stick a knife in it and see how jiggly it is or liquidy it is. Okay. Mine definitely needs like probably 20 more minutes. The outside's baking really nicely. The inside is still pretty liquidy. Okay, so I would subscribe to a Cooking as Ritual YouTube channel. That sounds fun. Maybe I'll do that. You guys inspire me. Okay, so I told some of you earlier that I would share a little bit more about my spatula story and how I got that name, or almost got that name. So my mom's from Thailand, and when she was pregnant with me, she was sitting somewhere with my aunt, and the version that I told the other night was like the quickie version. But basically, my mom was trying to come up with a name for me, and everyone on the Thai side of my family has S names. So my mom's name was Somchit, S-O-M, and then there's a space, and then C-H-I-T, Somchit. And like I have a cousin whose name is Sabon, and so I mean they're all S's. And my brother's name is Sean, because my mom wanted us to have European white sounding first names so there wouldn't be any confusion in school when people were looking at our rosters, and also so that when we went to job interviews in the future, like she was thinking very far down the road, that people wouldn't automatically disregard our applications based on our names, because she faced a lot of discrimination based on having her first name be Somchit. and all the jokes and things that come along with that. So my brother's name is Sean, but his full name is Sean Tiwa, which is his Thai name, Michael, named after my father, Harz, pronounced like multiple hearts. And so my first name on my birth certificate is Susan, and my middle name is Sarina, which is my Thai name. And so, and then Harz is my last name. Interestingly enough, though, when my mom was trying to come up with my name, she thought that spatula was a pretty word. And so she wanted to name me Spatula. And she wanted an S word, and she wanted something that sounded pretty. And to her, spatula was gorgeous. And so my aunt on my dad's side, so my mom's sister-in-law, was like, you cannot name your daughter Spatula. Like, that is just not a good idea. Everyone's going to make fun of her. And so it was really a funny conversation. And eventually, you know, my mom decided to name me after both my godmothers, Susan and Sarina. And that's how I got my names. When I was in college, I actually went by the name Sue, but I spelled it S-U. And then after I got sober and really like grounded into my physical form, I dropped into what felt true to me, and it felt like going by Sarina felt more in alignment and integrity with this new path I was forging. And now I can't really imagine being called anything else other than Spatula, which I absolutely love now. So fast forward to me being a kitchen witch. A few years ago, I started doing this cooking as ritual thing. And I call in my ancestors whenever I go into the kitchen, especially if I'm making Thai food or German food. I call them in and I ask for their guidance, and just allow them to move through me, allow that magic to move through me. And I in my mom's side of the family, we have a lot of health complications, and a lot of them are connected to our hearts. And so the adventure that I'm on right now is asking them to help me heal some of our family karma and really heal my body, or prevent my body from traveling down the same road that my mom traveled down, that ultimately killed her, and my aunts and my grandfathers and stuff like that. So it's a really beautiful practice to call your ancestors in when you're cooking. And that's, you know, part of activating that is that cooking with your hands process, but also like looking to the foods that your ancestors would have ate, and how can they nourish you? How can they feed you? Is really fun. And yeah, so my mom loved to cook for the church that she was a part of, that we were a part of growing up. And I mean, really until she got extremely sick last year, she was cooking still for the church. And I don't mean like making sandwiches. She would make these huge Thai feasts and bring them to the church to feed the entire congregation. And there was this element, you know, in the fellowship hall of feeding and nourishing and getting into our bodies and communing with each other. That was really a part of the magic and the medicine that she shared with the world. At all of the holidays that we would have at our house, I don't know that we've ever had one where it was just our biological family, or like our married family. We often had corpsmen from the Navy and soldiers, typically Marines, and nurses and doctors, because my mom worked in a naval hospital on a base. And, you know, people from the church, like basically we took in anyone during the holidays who didn't have a place to go, because it was so important for my mom to have that, to be able to offer that to folks, because we had a pretty big house and we had these giant tables, and we would push tables together and find chairs all over the house and push them together. And, you know, my mom would spend the entire day cooking, and as a byproduct of that, I was also cooking because, you know, children. So I would help her in the kitchen, and sometimes I grumbled about it, and sometimes I was like, this is really fun. And so to have, the breadth of experience in doing that, I've basically been cooking in the kitchen at large quantities of food since I was probably 5, I would guess. Because on the weekends, that's what we did. We would cook for the church, or we would cook for the hospital, because my mom, anytime there was a birthday party, or not even a birthday party, someone had a birthday, she would make egg rolls and fried rice and pad thai, and like take all of these offering spaghetti to people for their birthdays at the hospital. And so there was this really beautiful aspect of community and nourishing community that I feel like is also part of the medicine that I carry. And, Heather Ash and some of my other teachers have given me the opportunity to cook for our community groups. And that has been so life-giving. And I want to be able to show people how easy it is to just cook things or make things, and to really trust our intuition in that process, to get creative, and to be okay if something doesn't turn out right. Did I freeze again? Uh-oh. Am I still frozen? Okay, no. So funny being out here because the internet is mostly good. It's not as great as like fiber optics that I have in my house, but it's pretty good, especially for being in the middle of nowhere. So anyways, do you have any other questions about cooking as ritual? My general feeling sense is that, or my process rather, not my feeling sense, although it is inspired by my feeling sense, is that I love to have the kitchen be beautiful. So I love to have fresh flowers and light a candle to create sacred space. I call in my ancestors to help me. I communicate with the ingredients and let them have conversations with each other as well as with me. And I just listen deeply to what they have to say. And I allow the food to be nourishing to me and to those who I'm serving it to. I look for connections, if I can, between, if someone's going into a sweat lodge or coming out of a sweat lodge, it's going to be lighter. If someone is going to do deep emotional labor work, I'm probably going to do foods that are grounding. And so allowing that kind of intuition to come in and just trusting that process. And so, and then the last part I want to talk about is cleaning. So when you're done with your whole process, the cleaning, the act of cleaning the dishes can be very therapeutic as well as ritualistic. So I imagine that as I'm cleaning up the dishes, that I am letting go of anything that's not serving me. If I'm having a really strong disaster mind day, I'll ask the water and I'll commune with the water and I'll say, hello, Mother Water, like help me, release this. Or I'll talk to the heat of the water, which is fire, and like talking to that as well. And so you can use those different connections to the elements, and also to help the cleaning process and to really see cleaning as an art in that way. Okay, so I am going to scroll up and see. I saw some comments that went by as I was talking. So cooking as ritual with Sarina Harz. Yes, I love that. Calling in your ancestors. How to connect to the ingredients when picking food and ritual. Yeah, so one of the tasks that I'm trying to learn this year, or it was my goal to learn this year, but I probably won't learn it a whole lot until next year, just because of all of the changes we've had with COVID-19, is to go foraging. So I want to learn how to forage in the area that I live in, and then also at Warrior Heart Ranch. And then there's this other piece of land outside of Asheville, North Carolina. in the Blue Ridge Mountains that I help steward some, and I want to learn how to forage there as well. So we can connect to our ingredients as we're picking them in the grocery store, or we're getting them at a farmer's market, or if we're even foraging them ourselves. I really love that. I have had many food issues. I tell myself I can't have blank because blank, blank, blank. All of the stories, watching and listening to this really has shifted me. Adeli. Yeah, Adeli, I really have shifted a lot of my food things. I've had disordered eating since I was a child. My mom had really disordered eating, and I can see it in my nibblings now that they're starting to pick up on that from adults in their lives and friends that they have at school. And I'm very mindful that I don't want that to continue down our lineage. And so I'm still playing with how to make that happen. So I think I saw all of the questions and everything. If you have any other ones, please let me know. I am going to check in on the savory egg dish. We're almost at time. Oh, wow, I love that. I always resist cleaning up part. Now I'm going to change my perspective. Yeah, it can be really moving to begin to connect to cleaning in that way. I just did a huge overhaul of my office, which is an art and ritual room. And, oh, there's our timer. Oh, I wish I had not put stop. Okay. And it was really done in ritual. And so the kitchen is next after I get home from this trip. Yeah, anytime you're going into ritual, whether it's a lodge or deep emotional work, any kind of stuff like that, you want to make sure that your eating is supporting that. Oh my goodness, this is gorgeous. It's bubbling a little bit, so I'm going to see if the inside's done. It could probably take a couple more minutes, but I'm going to show you what it looks like. I can't tell if because the other thing is when something's really hot, it will keep continuing to cook. So that's what it looks like. And so I might give it a few minutes to see if the liquid that's hanging out at the top will basically get soaked up and cooked. And if it doesn't, then I'll put it back into the oven for a few minutes, but it's almost done. You can see it. So, any last questions or comments? I really appreciate you being here and hanging out with me this morning. It's been so much fun. Oh, and I still haven't eaten my yogurt yet. Okay, last 2 minutes. Do you make house calls, like teaching people how to cook or cooking food for you? So this is what I typically eat out of when I'm camping. It's a dish. You can get them at most places that sell camping gear, and there's lots of different variations of it. This is just the one that I have. And so there's a thread thing, and you just thread it through the lid, and it connects them together. And then you can put it around this way, and then it doesn't go out everywhere. So when I cut up our savory egg dish, this is what I'm going to put it in and eat it with my spork. And then I also tend to use my thermos, which I really appreciate. I'll eat all sorts of things out of this, and it's fun to throw in my backpack when I'm going on a hike. Make sure if you're going on a hike that you take a first aid kit, food, water, and rain gear, just to mention that. Okay. I love the using camp stuff in the home kitchen. I got my camp cast iron skillet out today to make breakfast. Yes. So if we are unable to get out to a campsite, just bring the camping to you. Put up a tent in your backyard. Use the camp kitchenware in your house. It's so fun. Show up and make whatever is in the kitchen. Shooting star, rotating, road trip, and cooling. Cooking, I'm imagining, with spatula. I mean, maybe. I haven't thought about that. But I can definitely, like, show up via Zoom and tell you this is what I would make if I had those ingredients. I think a Warrior Goddess Zoom cooking class will be great. I just had one with my breast cancer survivors, and we made savory dumplings. Oh my gosh, that sounds so good. I love dumplings of all kinds. Oh, and then I'll show you my last bit of cooking here before we head out. Okay. So if you're in the woods and you're by yourself, you can get a jet boil, which is this, and all you need is a propane tank thing. I think it's propane, butane, and you plop this on top. You take this part off, and then you can cook stuff in it. So this is really handy to make cocoa, or you can cook like full meals in it or heat them up. So I'll freeze a lot of food and then put them in here to heat them up. And then this is what my partner got me for my birthday a few years ago. And it goes with that frying pan that I used this morning. And so it all fits together. So there's 2 pots. I think it also came with plates. And then these are the lids for the pots. And then you just put the frying pan on top of it. And then it clips like this. And you just throw this into your backpack and it works for 4 people. So, okay, loves. Heather Apple's up next. And she's going to do a great day in the neighborhood. And then we'll have our closing. So thank you all for being here. If you have other questions or you're watching the replay later, feel free to type the comments. I'll keep monitoring them over the next few days. And then in our closing email, follow-up email thing that we'll send out, I'll put together a few things that you can try on your own, as well as what we did this morning. Okay, so thank you all for joining me, and I will see you soon. Spatula out.